So recently, I appeared on Shank Rock's demonstration, and I was on a panel with his guest, Kenya and Miss Parker, and we had a great conversation concerning Jarvis Butts and a lot of the evidence that may come up in his trial. I will I will attempt to link that demonstration down below, but I'm still kind of new to this. So if I don't, the name of Shank Rock's demonstration was Kenya goes out to reported site where Naziah Harris remains could be. Again, it was so many great questions that came up, a lot of spirited debate. Of course, some of us agree with one another, some of us don't agree, but I wanted to attempt to answer some questions that came up that maybe I didn't get a chance to go into great detail about. Um, First of all, I just want to say that I am not guessing at a lot of the things that I'm saying. I do have a background in criminal justice in law enforcement, 16 years. I am retired, and that's where I come at from my viewpoint of these cases. So if I have an opinion on something and it's not the law, if it's not fact, if I can't tell you that it's the law, I will tell you that it's my opinion. So again, I'm on an attempt to try and answer some of the questions that I believe came up doing that demonstration that maybe I just didn't get a chance to go into. Hi, I'm Nikki Lynn, and welcome to Nikki Lynn Investigates, where I break down true crime cases, past and present, provide you with updates on cases that shook our communities to its core. Follow along as we delve into current events, breaking news, and criminal trials with facts, context, and clarity, all while applying legal principles. Are you ready to take a closer look?
This video may contain copyrighted material. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976 allows for fair uses for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. This video is intended for educational, entertainment, and commentary purposes. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute.
So previously I did a demonstration on Jarvis Butts Plea Deal offer, and I was trying to make the case for why plea deals are offered. And basically I was stating, or at least I was attempting to state, in most cases, plea deals are typical. I don't believe that plea deals are offered based on how strong a case may or may not be. And in Jarvis' case, I certainly didn't think that that was the case either. I believe with him having 6 separate charges against him, all of the same nature, and in that plea deal, I read the conditions of the plea that they were trying to offer him. They did indeed intend to charge him as an habitual offender. Basically, the fact that he keeps repeating these same charges, he was going to get a lot of time, and he's going to get a lot of time regardless. He's pending these 6 separate cases regardless of whether or not he accepts the plea. It was only one case, and I believe that was case ending in 6461, where they're not including that in the plea deal. That's a separate charge, a separate case, I'm sorry, in of its own. And there may be extenuating factors in that case where they don't want to include that in the plea deal. I'm not privy to that information, so I don't know why. But at least 5 of the charges, 5 of the cases, they rounded all up and was offering him a plea deal. A plea deal. Again, I do not believe it's because they believe they have a weakened case. I even showed in my demonstration where at first he was being charged, and I have the charges here on the screen, with M1 in the first degree. But even in the plea deal, guys, they only dropped it down, and I say only, to M in the second degree. So they didn't completely take it off the table. In the plea deal, all they took away was the premeditation. So they still believe he committed the M, but all they're doing is taking away the fact that they believe it was premeditated and charging him with you still intended to do it. You just didn't pre-plan it ahead of time. Again, I do not believe that the plea deal is being offered to Jarvis because they have a weakened case. They did not throw out a lot of these charges. They reduced them. They took some of them off the table. A lot of them are of the same nature, especially the CSC, the actual conduct. And so to combine them and wrap them all up into one, again, the fact that they're charging him as a habitual offender, he still, the author still was 40 to 80 years. And this may be with or without parole. He's going to spend a lot of time in prison regardless. So that was my first point about the plea deal. I just wanted to make clear that they offer plea deals regardless of whether or not they have a strong case. I believe the effort is to save taxpayers' money, to save time, and to get you to plea. And if you plead down, they're still going to give you a lot of time regardless. Whether or not Jarvis is attempting to get a better deal, I don't know. Obviously, he has up until he goes to court to continue to try and get a better deal out of them. Regardless of him getting a better deal or not, I still think he's going to spend a lot of time in jail as an habitual offender. That's my first comment. Also, it doesn't matter if his charges are reduced, if they combine charges, or even if some of the charges are dropped, because ultimately they are running his charges concurrent, not consecutively. And I explained this in my prior demonstration on plea deals as well. Running his charges concurrent means he does the same amount of time as he would for 5 separate cases that all gave him 10 years. He would only do 10 years on 5 separate cases, as if, as opposed to, I'm sorry, if he had 5 separate cases where he had 10 years for each case, then if they were running consecutively, he would do 50 years. But in this case, they're running his charges concurrent, guys, and under, I guess, the statutes of his crimes, they can do that. Secondly, I think another issue that came up was whether or not they knew Naziah was, one, indeed pregnant, and two, Jarvis was the father. So I pointed out that the text messages between Jarvis and Naziah showed that she did indeed make Jarvis aware of her pregnancy. And I know there's speculation that some of those messages may or may not have come from Shannon. To me, I don't think that's a factor because Jarvis always thought he was talking to Naziah. That's the first thing. So regardless of whether or not Shannon was on the other end of those messages, Naziah was making it clear to Jarvis that she thought she was pregnant, and Jarvis was responding to who he thought was Naziah. That's the first thing. The second thing, I know that's not a clear, proven account of yes, she's pregnant. And I don't know if she was ever taken to the doctor. I don't know if her pregnancy was ever confirmed. I agree with that part of it. So then this is where Kenya comes in. This is where good information for me came in from Kenya. I don't know if Naziah's pregnancy has ever been confirmed. I agree. But that's when Kenya came in and said, you guys have to remember, there was unidentified DNA on the material, on the clothing. And I said, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. You're absolutely right. If they tested the DNA on this clothing, they have DNA from Naziah, they have DNA from Jarvis. If there's unidentified DNA on the clothing, you get 50% of your DNA from your mom, 50% of DNA from your dad, then they can prove, and I believe this is what Kenya was saying and what I was trying to make clear during the demonstration, that that means that that third DNA on this clothing must have been from the baby. They would have to have been able to prove 50% of that DNA was from Naziah and 50% was from Jarvis, therefore proving that 50% obviously was given to the baby from each parent, and that was indeed DNA from Naziah's baby. Which leads to the next question. Did Naziah have the baby? This does not mean Naziah had the baby. This means that something caused Naziah to either abort, deliver early, whichever medical term you want to use is usually called self-abortion if you don't go full term through pregnancy, but a miscarriage. And there was DNA on the clothing. How it got there, where it happened, I cannot answer that. But it appears that that's what Kenya was telling us. So then this brought up the very next question, which was a great question. Why isn't Jarvis being charged for the unaliving of the baby? We see his charges. We see that it does not include a charge for the baby. And again, I've stated that all states are different. I do not know exactly what it is for the state of Michigan, but in most states, they will not charge you for the unaliving of a fetus unless the baby is viable. The baby could have lived outside of the womb on its own. And I saw some people put in comments that the baby is viable after 20, 24 weeks. But I also want to add, not just viable, but able to live unassisted on its own. So a full term baby. That's another aspect of the law. Sometimes it's not just that the baby is viable, but you have to be considered full term. The baby has to be able to live unassisted on its own. Do I know that this is the case for Michigan? I do not. We do know that Jarvis has not been charged for the unaliving of Naziah's baby. So we can only speculate as to why. But I do know in most states they have cases or laws such as that where they will not charge you for the unaliving of a baby if it does not meet those certain criteria. So this brings me to my next response. So if Jarvis has done this before, if there has been a young girl pregnant by him before, why now? Why Naziah? Why get rid of her? And my response to that would be, again, this is my speculation. The exposure. Jarvis was about to be exposed. I don't know if Naziah had been taken to a doctor, if her pregnancy had been confirmed. But if Naziah had carried this pregnancy to term, if Naziah had delivered this baby or had a baby at some point, Jarvis was going to be exposed. Again, we see with his charges that he's going to be charged as an habitual offender. But not only that, even if Annette, Shannon, and anyone else in the family knew or suspected Jarvis of touching on any of these children, with Naziah's pregnancy, it would have been confirmed. A confirmed pregnancy from this 46-year-old man. I believe he was 46, maybe 43, I'm sorry. From this 40-something-year-old man That confirmed that he was doing things to these kids that he had no business. He already had charges of this nature. He was going to go to jail. He was going to be exposed. He was going to have criminal charges. Now, whether or not he premeditated and planned to get rid of Naziah is one thing. But I certainly believe, as do the courts, Kim Worthy, the prosecutor's office, that he intended to get rid of the baby. He did not want evidence of this baby existing, evidence that he ever touched Naziah. Even if he had Shannon and Annette willing to keep quiet about his actions, it's pretty hard to hide a baby. You take a 13-year-old to the doctor and she delivers, you're going to have questions. Eventually, the school, her playmates, the doctor, people are going to ask questions. Who is the father? So to answer that question, why now? Why would Jarvis get rid of Naziah? I honestly think he intended to get rid of the baby and it went too far. Where is Naziah? I have to honestly say, I do believe, as the prosecutor's office believes, that Naziah is gone. I do not believe she's being hidden. I do not believe anyone is taking care of her or her baby this long. I do believe that it's hard for any group of people, more than one, to hold a secret. So for Naziah to be hidden, for her baby to be hidden, that would involve at least more than one person holding on to this secret to keep her, to hide her. That would mean she herself chooses to remain hidden and not be found. And I just don't believe that's the truth. The second thing is, I believe the prosecutor's office stated they have enough evidence to believe that she is unalive. And I tend to agree. I believe the family has to declare her deceased, have to legally do that. So until they do that, the prosecutor's office cannot do it. But that being said, where's Naziah's body? I don't have any insight or opinions on the mediums or the psychics who, see her and state that, she's in a specific place. To me, I do not believe that after so many years and months have gone by, that we would find her, that we would find a body. Let me put it that way. She would obviously be in a decomposed state. So a body would not be found. But even still, regardless of whether it was Jarvis or Jarvis had some help, I also believe that whether or not Naziah was, and this is all my opinion, guys, whether Naziah was placed in the water, I believe her body would have surfaced by now. Um, Unless she was buried deeply somewhere, I believe she would have surfaced. And by surface, I mean, in the woods or something like that. Animals have a way of digging up bodies. That being said, if she was just found in an abandoned home, you would smell the remains of a decomposed body. So whatever they did to her, I really believe that she's not in a whole state. And I don't want to get graphic and go into detail, but I do not believe that when Naziah is found, they will find a body. Obviously, it will be decomposed, it will be remains, and I do not believe it may even be in a state where they can identify her easily. They would have to do DNA. That's just my belief. It does stand to reason after 2-3 years that you would not find a body such as that. But also, I know that they stated, and again, this just adds to the conversation that Miss Parker and Kenya and I had about Jarvis going into the hotel. Again, I believe the evidence that we heard at the preliminary, that there was going to be more that was going to come out at the trial. I almost wish there was a trial so we can hear what other evidence they have. But of course, I understand again, at the cost of taxpayers' money, that a plea would be offered. And if he takes the plea, that's okay. Um, but I almost want to know what other evidence they have, because my understanding is they did not find Naziah's DNA anywhere in this hotel or this motel. I'm not sure if it was a hotel or a motel. Um, so I'm just curious as to if he did do anything to dispose of her, where, how, and if no one saw her going into the hotel or leaving, then where ultimately did he take her? So those are questions obviously that we still all have, but I think this is information that was going to come out in the trial. They just didn't give it to us all at the preliminary. Jarvis obviously knows the answer. Will he give it to us? Uncertain. And finally, we get to whether or not Jarvis had help in getting rid of Naziah. And that was where we started with my question to Kenya, was if Shannon did indeed help Jarvis, one, do we believe that Jarvis would cover up for Shannon? I don't think so. I think he's narcissistic. I think he only intends to protect himself. I agree that him protecting himself may protect them. Him not giving up evidence inadvertently protects them, but I don't think he's seeking out to help Shannon or Annette or anyone else. I think it's all just in an effort to conceal his own crimes. That being said, let's just say he is trying to protect them in some manner. Why? And then why would Shannon help Jarvis? But my biggest question is, why would the state of Michigan wait to charge Shannon with a crime if they have evidence against her stating she participated in a crime against Naziah and helped Jarvis? What would be the reason for holding off on charging her? I understand, and I think people were mistaken what I was saying. I wasn't suggesting that they be tried together, because again, Jarvis has 6 cases against him. They're combining his cases and trying to offer him a plea deal. Shannon would certainly have her own case, but if she assisted him, there would be no good reason to me for them to hold off on charging her. She could absolutely flee if she thought charges were coming, and they're giving her all this opportunity to get her story straight, to flee the country, anything. Also, that being said, I understand if they did not charge her at this moment because they expect Jarvis to give them more information. If they expect Jarvis' own trial to elicit additional information that they can use against Shannon. I, I can understand that. But what I don't understand is if Kim Worthy said additional people will be tried, more charges are coming. Well, damn it, Kim, when? And who are these people? Because again, regardless of your opinion and my opinion and her opinion and his opinion, we're all out here fighting for justice for Naziah. We want all of those who are complicit in crimes against her to go to jail. We all want this baby to receive justice. So therefore, if Shannon or Annette or anyone is walking free, we want them tried. I can also say there does not appear to be any criminal charges pending against Annette or Shannon, although I think we all pretty much agree that they're negligent and they obviously knew of Nazia's condition and the things that Jarvis Butts was doing to her. So they certainly should face some type of criminal charges. But again, as far as I can tell, I do not see any criminal charges pending against them. Whether or not the state of Michigan plans to file any criminal charges against them, I don't know. They could be waiting, as I stated previously, for Jarvis to give them more compelling evidence. I don't know. I would hope that if they had evidence against her, that they would charge her, that they would hold her. I just would hope that they wouldn't allow her to roam around and be free. But again, maybe they have reasons unbeknownst to me and the public as to why they're not charging her yet. But again, we all see um, Annette and Shannon obviously allow things to happen to not only Nazia but those other children, and they allowed Jarvis to just do unimaginable things to those kids, and it's just horrible. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, and they should be charged. They absolutely should be charged, and I think we all agree to that. But I do not know if I think she participated in getting rid of Nazia's body, which is why, again, I almost wish that there was a trial because I would love to hear this other evidence that they have. All these witnesses, I want to hear. I want to see all this data that they have, everything that they compiled, but I also understand the need to just send him down the road. I mentioned in my previous demonstration about Jarvis plea deal offer that I didn't know if they had made him a proffer, which is when they agree to take certain things off the table and not charge him with additional charges if he agrees to give up information. And in this case, we're hoping that Jarvis would tell what he did to Nazia or where the body is. And I'm still hoping that that's something that's on the table, that he will have a conscience and tell us what happened to give the family closure. But honestly, guys, I don't believe Jarvis is that type of person. I really just believe he would go to his grave with this information. And I really think it's just to protect himself. I'm sorry. Um, I don't think he loved Nazia as I've heard people say before. I don't think he cared about her. It was all about him and his own selfish needs and his own pleasure. And each and every woman that he used was for that same reason. So I agree with Kim Worthy in her statement where she said he befriended women so he can get close to their children. Jarvis is for himself. Again, I hope that he would give us information relating to Nazia's whereabouts and what actually happened that day on the 9th. But I'm not holding out hope. If he's the true narcissist that I think he is, he would never tell. So finally, whether or not Jarvis accepts a plea deal, I honestly believe him being charged as an habitual offender, he's going to go away for a long time. Whether or not he remains with an M1 charge or is reduced to M2 means he's going away for a long time. I also believe they have enough evidence against him, his own text messages, to help him go away for a very long time. I do not believe he will give up information as to where Nazia may be. I don't think he will tell us the details of what really happened, but let's hold out hope for that. I almost want it to be a trial so we can hear all the evidence that they have, but I really don't hold out hope for that. Ultimately, I would like Shannon and Annette to be charged criminally with something: neglect, obstruction. We saw them lie at the preliminary hearing, but we'll wait and see if charges come their way. I will continue to follow this case. He has his trial scheduled for February 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. We will continue to wait to see if he is offered another plea deal, if he'll accept one. Um, as always, is justice for Naziah. This has been another episode of Nikki Lynn Investigate. Please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section. I will be happy to answer any questions, comments, and concerns you may have. Thank you.